What's up, everybody? It's the Goal60 here, joined by the Square Chair, Cody, and we're going to go over some conference projections, talk about some win totals, and at the end of all of this, we're actually going to go over our Final Four and what we think is going to finish up for the season. But with that said, let's jump right in, Cody. If you want to jump in first on the SEC East, give me your prediction on who's going to win it.
Okay, well, I kind of went a little chalk in the SEC. So in the SEC, I've got Georgia. I just think Kirby Smart. I think if you go by 24/7, which is usually what I use, since they have the accumulation of everything, I think they have more 5 stars on their roster than any other team. I think the next closest is Alabama, then Clemson. I think Ohio State's in there. So I think Georgia's got more talent than anybody based off those rankings. It just usually comes down to intangibles with Georgia. But I think their schedule sets up pretty well for them. They don't get LSU. They get A&M at home, which they switched that from last year. So I have Georgia winning the East in the SEC.
I'm right there with you. I think that it's just, like you said, they're just too loaded right now. I think we got some other teams that are trying to catch back up. Obviously, Florida can make up that gap in a hurry with being able to recruit the state of Florida, things like that. I think they've got the right coach, actually. But Georgia right now is just light years ahead of anybody. I've got them projected at 230 yards offensive rushing, 225 yards passing. So I think their offense is actually going to have a really good output. On defense, they're pretty stout. I think 120 yards rushing and giving up around 175 yards a game passing. I think this team, until somebody just really steps up and plays them for 4 quarters, I don't think anybody in the East is going to set up well with them.
Now, another surprise team, I guess, would be Missouri. I really like their schedule.
I do too.
I really like Missouri's schedule. I think Barry Odom's done a crazy job because initially I thought he was going to be canned after the first year. But I think they could end up going 8-0 into the Georgia game, honestly.
I've actually got them finishing second in the East just because of that. And look, anytime you've got a quarterback that can play, you've got a shot. And having Kelly Bryant, who is a known, a really player. He's used to starting in big games. He's got the experience. He's not going to be scared to go to some of these SEC stadiums. He's there to play ball, and I think that that's going to go a long way. I've got them finishing second in that side. What about on the West?
West, I'm going to have to see it change, but, I've got Alabama at 1. The only thing I have deterring them is injuries. I know you've been following me on Twitter. I post stuff all the time about the injuries. I think, Raekwon Davis got hurt in practice. He came back in, but that's just a little thing like that. Jerome Ford's out for a week. Just little things like that continue to pile up. And I'm afraid this year's linebackers are the running backs this year. It seems like the running back with Trey Sanders, who said he was going to win the Heisman this year, is on the shelf. So I guess, got a way of humbling yourself sometimes. But
absolutely.
I think Alabama's schedule sets up really well for them. Would I like to play somebody else in the first game other than Duke? Yes, but does it really matter? I think Saban wins these first games by an average of like 28 points anyway. So, I don't really think what the helmet says on the first week. So I got Bama.
Exactly. I'm right there with you. This right now, and as a disclaimer, you and I both are Bama grads. We're going to be a little biased, but it's just the truth right now. He's so good in these opening games. He's got it figured out, obviously. And right now I've got Bama at 185 yards rushing. I've got them actually at 330 yards average passing. Now, I think that's actually going to come down a little bit on passing and a little bit more rushing yards this year. I think we're going to run the ball a little bit harder. But Tua is so good at throwing. And when you've got the stacked receivers like we have right now, you've got to throw the ball when you can. And then on defense, I've got them only giving up around 90 yards a game rushing, 190 yards a game passing. I think that's good enough to win the West for sure. And even though it seems like every year we get brand new assistant coaches, I still think we're going to be okay and get it done again.
Well, I think Sal Sunseri's the biggest addition to the offseason, the whole season, bringing the band back together, getting him back, getting Benny back, even Sark back. I think
Yep.
Sarkisian got a bad rap, but it wasn't his fault. I mean, Lane Train wasn't showing up to practices focused. I mean, he was already ready to get out of there. So I mean,
Right. He
Sark
was
was
already
given
checked out.
yeah, and I think if Bo Scarborough doesn't get hurt, I think Sarkisian's the next offensive coordinator the following year. But he got hurt, and we looked terrible. So he was the fall guy, but I think it wasn't him. And we got Major Applewhite as a grad assistant. I mean,
Yeah.
when you can have somebody with that much head coaching experience, being in the system before, I mean, that's just an added bonus to having the band back together, in my opinion.
Not only was he the head coaching experience, Major Applewhite was a offensive coordinator for us back when Saban first got here,
Yeah.
right? And then he bolted to go back to his alma mater, Texas, to become the offensive coordinator then. So he's been here. He knows the system. You're right. It's just like you keep bringing them in. I was sitting in a restaurant not too long ago, and Butch Jones come in and sat right beside me, a little bit starstruck, even though he is an old volunteer. I still wanted to say something to him, kind of passed on it. But
The
with that
players love
said,
him, though. I mean, the
I
players
know he's a player's
they love
guy.
it.
He's a player's guy. So, what about some of these win totals? You want me to jump into them first? Can I give you a couple and you can go off of that?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, let's do
All
that.
right. The first one I have, and once again, the reason I said that about being a Bama grad is because this is going to sound like a homer. I've actually got Auburn going under 7.5. And that right now, you can get that under minus 120.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I've got Auburn finishing fourth in the West, and
Yep.
honestly, I think they could probably win 2 or 3 Power 5 conferences. I mean,
Yeah.
just because they're finishing fourth in the West doesn't mean I don't think Auburn's a terrifying team. Because as me
Absolutely.
and you know, there's nothing scarier than a 9-1 or 9-2 Auburn team in the Iron Bowl.
That's absolutely right. They get that little bit of run, and they get a little bit of word that they could really do some damage, and they do.
I think
The
the
other
key to
one,
that whole season is Oregon. If they
oh,
win
absolutely,
Oregon, then it's snowball. But if they
absolutely,
lose it, it's going the other way. If they win that, they're going
absolutely.
to have all the momentum. But if you look at their early schedule, it's pretty brutal. So
I got you. Well, the other one I have in the SEC is actually taking an over, and it's a team we mentioned earlier in the East. I'm taking Missouri over 8 at minus 130. I really feel like they could get to double-digit wins this year.
yeah, I mean I do too. I actually before you said you had Missouri, I guess it was a week ago, 4 or 5 days ago. I said Missouri was over 8, and I
Yeah,
think I would have even taken them at 9. So if I'm
yeah.
going to Vegas, I'm putting what money I do have on Missouri for some reason.
I got you. Well, that wraps up the SEC. Now let's jump into the Pac-12. If you'll get us started with the Pac-12 North, we'll jump right in.
Okay, well, a little curveball here. I had Washington as my winner in the North, and then I was like, no, I'm going to Oregon just because of Herbert. So I switched
Yep.
maybe 10 minutes before you called. So I've got Oregon. I've got Oregon winning. Justin Herbert, even though Oregon I think goes to Washington. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. That was the only deterrent keeping me originally from Oregon. But I think Oregon gets it done in the North. And I'm not really sure about Washington's defense because if you watch the draft over the last couple of years, they have
Yep.
lost a ton of big names.
They have. They sure have. I'm right there with you, man. I mean, it seems like we're dead on so far. We'll see if we can keep this going. But I've got Oregon winning the North also. I got them at 175 yards rushing a game, 270 yards passing, 170 yards given up on the ground on defense, and 230 passing. Enough to where it looks like they'll be playing quite a few close games, but I really think, like you do about Justin Herbert, I think he is going to really surprise some people this year. And with that offensive line that he has and him coming back, that's going to be tough to stop. Some of the skill positions. I know they lost one of their big receivers a few weeks ago. I think that'll be okay, though. I really feel like they're going to turn it around. What do you think about the South? What about the
South,
South? Yeah.
I was down to Utah and USC. I ended up going Utah with the defense they have coming back. Zach Moss at running back and Huntley at quarterback. I just think it's too much in the South. I don't really trust
Yeah.
Mel Tucker yet. Colorado, UCLA, Chip Kelly needs another recruiting class or two. Khalil Tate coming back at Arizona does scare me a little bit, but I think I'm going to go with Utah in the South.
I got you. And I'm right there with you on the winner again. That South side of that conference is just not up to par. Right now, I got Utah at 190 yards rushing, 215 yards passing, giving up 115 yards on the ground, and only giving up 205 yards passing. I'm right there with you on Arizona, though. I've got them finishing second with Khalil Tate, just simply off the experience and knowing that quarterback's such an important position. So we're dead on so far on this first video on our picks for the winners of each conference. The thing that I think may hurt Utah in the long run at all, may keep them from going a perfect 12-0, is they're not used to this hype going into a season. They're not used to people saying you're the best. But what will help them is the fact that the rest of that side of the conference is weak,
and
so they can overcome that.
And I think Kyle Whittingham has either won every bowl game he's been in or only lost one. So,
absolutely,
he is a very good big game coach. I mean, some bowl games aren't that big, but to those players, I mean, that's the biggest game of the year. So I think Whittingham's a really good coach in the South.
So you got any? Or I'll look at my win totals here, and I've got two of them for the Pac-12. In the North, I've got Cal. I really believe in them for some reason. I think 5.5 games is just too low. I like the over, even though it is minus 140. I've got them closer to 8 wins than I do to 5.5. So I think this is an over for me. That even though I projected them a little bit higher, that gives me a little buffer room to where if they do end up losing, let's say they go 6-6, I still cash at over 5.5.
Can you tell me Cal's out of conference games real quick?
Yes, I can. Cal has got UC Davis, which is Hawk, the coach that was at Boise State and then went to Colorado. Yeah. So UC Davis, they've got North Texas, and they've got Ole Miss. They're on the road to Ole Miss.
Okay, so yeah, Ole Miss played them last year. Or was it 2 years ago?
I think it was 2 years ago on the road. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the comeback game, I guess.
That's right.
Okay, so yeah, I think obviously the Pac-12 North is the toughest. The second, it might be the second toughest division in all of college football. So yeah. I mean, I want to say Cal over, but I think 5.5 or 5 is the number, so I might go.
I got you.
Go under there.
I got you. The one of the Pac-12 South is the winner that I projected, that we both projected, over 9 for Utah. I think even if they choke a little bit and take a loss or two, they still get over 9. So, and the good thing about having if you're going to go over a number like that, having a whole number and not having that hook, that half game, that allows you to either push or win, in my opinion. So as long as they get more than 8 games, you're either going to get your money back or you're going to get your win. And even though it is juiced a little heavier, it's minus 160 to the over, I think it's still got value. Utah over 9.
Yeah, I think they're 11-1. I don't know who they lose to, but I think they do lose one, and that's probably a good thing for them. Because, probably not as far like if Alabama loses, they can get in the playoffs. So probably they got to go 12-0 to get into the playoffs. I think so. They can't lose really. But I think
if they win,
9 is incredible.
Yeah, I think that's a great number, especially this late. I mean, we've only got another week to get these plays in before Florida and Miami, and they start pulling those game totals down or team totals down. Right. I still think there's value there. That's going to wrap it up, everybody, for the first video. We're probably going to get this in 3 videos, I believe, and just make sure you check those out. I'll link those below. I'm going to put those out starting tonight. Hopefully this video will come out tonight, and then the second video to Monday evening, and then the third video on Tuesday evening. But I'll link all these together, so when you watch one, check out the links in the description.